Now that we're learning about genre, there are several aspects that deserve attention. Genre refers to the ways in which common characteristics across discursive text can be used to classify like-minded text. In other words, genre serves as a frame of reference for how to categorize objects in the world. Genres are understood to be made up of commonalities and rhetorical patterns. These patterns may be substantive, stylistic, and/or situational. Substantive commonalities have to do with the themes, message, and content of a particular genre. Stylistic patterns include the forms, styles, and overall aesthetic feel of a genre. Finally, genre consists of common situations or contexts in which discourse arises. Putting a text in a genre category may lead us toward particular expectations and enable us to make generalizations about it. One of the problems that often arises with generic analysis is the tendency to look for elements that make up a particular artifact and quickly categorize that text within a specific genre. One of the problematic aspects of doing this is that we too quickly decide that certain artifacts can be interpreted and enjoyed from the standpoint of a certain genre, without understanding that many contemporary artifacts mix generic elements, styles, aesthetics, and functions for a variety of rhetorical effects. Thus, even though Aristotle used genres as a helpful taxonomy, he theorized that lines could be blurred, elements that are typical in one genre may exist in another, and so on. Scholars call such combination of elements from different genres a rhetorical hybrid. Most of us know that any musical artist we listen to borrows from a myriad of sources. Recently, I binged a popular and critically lauded series on Disney+, The Mandalorian. For those who are unfamiliar with the Star Wars universe, The Mandalorian takes place decades after the events of the original Star Wars trilogy. Viewers of Star Wars take joy in seeing many familiar settings and aliens from the films, but with a new narrative and a backstory that adds to the overall sense of the epic story that George Lucas gave us decades ago. In watching the show, I began to get a sense that a strong understanding of genre adds to the enjoyment and actually helps interpret the stories and themes present in the show. Most of you would immediately categorize a show that plays on the Star Wars narrative within the genre of science fiction, and you would not be wrong. However, audiences should also understand that the Western genre is actually more important to the overall tone and themes of the show. First of all, the character of the Mandalorian is a common character type within the Western genre. Following the famous spaghetti westerns featuring Clint Eastwood in the 1960s, the main character is a mysterious, seemingly without a name, and a drifter. Eastwood's character, the man with no name, is famously a bounty hunter who would move throughout the West looking for various criminals. While he does bring them to justice, he's not a lawman, so he's driven by money. Yet both characters' moral codes set them apart from the colorful characters that make up Westerns, such as the corrupt sheriff, greedy landowners, and cattle barons, and other innocent people out on the frontier. Aside from the many aspects of each character that allow for comparisons, The Mandalorian also has an aesthetic look similar to Eastwood's character. There are also many thematic elements in Westerns that show up in The Mandalorian. By nature of his occupation as a bounty hunter, Eastwood's character was also a drifter. In fact, one of the most famous Westerns Eastwood starred in was called High Plains Drifter. In that film, the main character is paid to defend the town against a gang of outlaws. And in what has become a common theme among the Western genre, he must train the rest of the peaceful but victimized townsfolk to defend themselves. In The Mandalorian, episode 4 of season 1, he arrives at a primitive village being terrorized by raiders. Despite the overwhelming firepower of the attackers, the training provided by the Mandalorian wins the day. This theme is also common in other types of films and shows. For instance, it was utilized in Mel Brooks' classic Western comedy Blazing Saddles, and is also prevalent within the martial arts genre. See Ip Man for a good example. In all of these cases, the film or TV show ends in a dramatic attack on the town, where the peaceful town prevails and justice is served. Contextual elements in similar settings can also be found. While Westerns are known for vast expanses of prairie, deserts, saloons, and one-horse towns, so too does the Mandalorian find himself on desert planets, in the seedy saloon where we originally visited in the first Star Wars, and traversing vast plains of space. While all Westerns are known for their horses, several episodes show the Mandalorian having to ditch his spacecraft for a ride on a blurg, an alien creature that is trained for riding. So now that I've shown how The Mandalorian is a generic hybrid of the sci-fi and Western genres, what can we say about this popular generic hybrid? For one thing, as I've already said, I think being in on the constellation of elements in the show that draw from Westerns makes the show much more fun. It sets up a particular expectation for the audience that can then be met in unique ways through the generic elements of science fiction and adventure. Utilizing elements of the Western genre allows the show's creator to draw from the common themes, styles, and characters we're used to seeing and place them in a unique context. It is not necessary to know the generic elements of the Western, or sci-fi for that matter, in order to enjoy The Mandalorian. But it helps the audience to more fully understand the character, the stakes in the storyline, and the various thematic and stylistic choices made on the show. I hope you've enjoyed this brief explanation of genre in relation to a popular cultural text.